Hi, it's Penny here, and today we're going to be doing the second half of my February wrap-up. So I already did a video where I talked about all the fantasy and science fiction books that I read. In this video, we're going to focus more on the thrillers that I read. I guess one kind of counts as horror, and then there were a couple of like children's graphic novels in there as well. And as usual, I am going to do this book battle style, which means I pair up all the books, I battle them against each other until we come up with the best book of the month. So in my last video, I did pick the best fantasy / science fiction, so we will put that up against whatever comes out as the best book from this video. And I'm going to start by talking about two thrillers that had a lot in common. So we've got Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney up against The Wife Between Us by Greer, Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. So in February, I did make a little bit of an effort to try and find some thrillers that I would like. I didn't really succeed, but I did learn that I don't really like thrillers with toxic relationships, which unfortunately a lot of them seem to have. So Rock, Paper, Scissors is primarily about this couple. Their therapist has suggested that they go away on a trip together, that maybe that would help. And conveniently, they've won this holiday at this remote chapel in the middle of the snow. As well, the husband is a writer, and his first novel that never really made it was called Rock, Paper, Scissors, and in it, one of the main characters every year writes a letter to her husband. So, as well as following along with this couple as they go on this holiday, we're also getting these yearly letters, and you're seeing how they've both got secrets from each other and how their relationship is kind of falling apart. I think the other key element in this is that the husband has face blindness, so there was something that happened in his past, and even though he saw the person who did something bad, he was never able to identify them because of his face blindness. And this face blindness does fit into the overall plot, although I would love to hear a review from someone with really strong face blindness. I know some people who have some amount of face blindness, but I'd love to hear a review from someone who has a lot of face blindness to know whether this is actually realistic. I'm not sure. Also, like the whole time during this book, I just felt like they should break up. At no time was I invested in their relationship at all, but that's because I tend to, when I read about toxic relationships, just think they should break up. It's a waste of time. So I found that bit kind of boring, but I did enjoy the mystery as we learned about it. And I thought the twist was very well executed. I will admit, I think that if you've read that kind of twist before, you might pick up on it. But like, I hadn't read it before, so I didn't pick up on it. And even if you picked up on it, I still think it was pretty well executed, because there were quite a few clues throughout the whole thing that you could have picked up on, and that as you slowly put things together, it was an enjoyable experience. I think that's what I like about thrillers, is like slowly putting the clues together and then realizing what's really going on. So if you know any thrillers like that, please do recommend them to me in the comments. The other thriller that I read was The Wife Between Us by Greer, Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, and if I had only thought, I would have realized that it was going to be about a toxic relationship if I just read the synopsis. But I don't like to read synopsises for thrillers because they often spoil things. But I should have known this was going to be about a toxic relationship. Specifically, this is about a man who's very controlling, and this woman does manage to get away from him, but then he's getting remarried and she feels a whole bunch of feelings about that. I thought the pacing in this was really weird. There's like a reveal about halfway through that, because it gets revealed so early, feels almost pointless. And then the very ending almost seemed like it was trying to justify this really awful controlling behavior that he had had. So I hated that. And just like the whole second half of the book, I was like, what is even happening here? So basically, I didn't enjoy that one at all, and I think I could have predicted that if I just used my brain. But anyway, in that case, I think it's obvious that I'm going to put Rock, Paper, Scissors through to the next round because it was far superior. Then our next battle is going to be between He Started It by Samantha Downing and The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kierstin White. So He Started It. This one was not fully focused around a toxic relationship, and so I thought that was a good sign. Instead, it's about this family and their grandfather dies. As part of his will, he stipulates that they need to go on this road trip that they went on when they were younger. And as we go on this road trip with them as adults, with their spouses, we learn a lot about what happened when they were younger, and it was not a straightforward road trip. And I guess we're learning about a bunch of things that are going on with this family when they're adults, some of these things being a direct consequence of things that happened in the original road trip. The only thing I would say with this is it wasn't really that kind of mystery where you're picking up on clues and figuring things out that I really like. Instead, it was more like And here's another surprising thing that you never could have guessed. And we just kind of kept learning more and more about this family. And I don't feel like things always made complete sense. And I personally did find the ending was a little bit unsatisfying. I do think it was surprising, so it had that going for it. But it's not really what I wanted. As well, in the end, there was a bit of a toxic relationship in this, only in that this main character's husband was this guy who she didn't even seem to know anything about him. She didn't really even seem to like him. Every time I read about a relationship like this, I just don't understand. Why would you marry someone that you don't know and you don't care about? Weird. Then the next book is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. I had heard very mixed things about this, so I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into, but basically it is a retelling of Frankenstein from the perspective of Elizabeth Frankenstein. So Elizabeth Frankenstein was adopted by the Frankensteins when she was younger because they found that she was able to help deal with Victor's kind of darker side, and I really did think this was an interesting perspective of the story. Until the ending. I personally feel like the ending undid everything that I like about Frankenstein, and so I can see why there's quite a split opinion on this. I do think if you haven't read Frankenstein, then probably it will seem like a lot of the stuff that's happening in this book is like coming from this book and a part of this book, whereas I found a lot of the interesting stuff was actually from the original Frankenstein, and this book added a little bit on top of it. And then it shat all over it at the ending is how I felt. I will admit though that it has been a while since I read Frankenstein, so it did make me want to go back and reread Frankenstein to see whether my annoyance at the ending of this one is justified. Maybe it's not justified. I think it's justified. I really didn't like the ending, even though I wanted to like the ending. I really just need to reread Frankenstein. Anyway, putting these two books up against each other, it is a little bit difficult because I had problems with both of them. However, I do think that it was right up until the end of The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, I was enjoying it. I thought it was fine. I don't know that I was in love with it, but I thought, this is a pretty good retelling. I like this different perspective from Elizabeth's point of view. It was just the ending. So I feel like we're going to go like on percentages. And for the vast percentage of The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, I was enjoying it. Whereas he started it, it's probably the same, you know. In the beginning, I was quite enjoying it. But it was just like once it kind of seemed like there wasn't a mystery for me to work out, I started liking it less. So I think if you haven't read Frankenstein, highly recommend The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, and I'm going to put that through to the next round. I don't really know how I'm making this battle work. I did not plan this properly. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put all my thrillers, and I guess I'm counting The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein as a horror. So I'm going to put the winners of both those battles up against each other, and then we'll do the contemporary children's books. So that means our next battle is going to be between Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney and The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kierstin White. And I feel like this is one of these battles where it's fairly obvious because I only put The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein through because it was like the lesser of two evils, the least worst of books I was unsure about. I mean, I didn't hate it. I kind of hated it at the end. Anyway, I don't feel like I'm making sense in this video. But I think quite obviously I'm going to put Rock, Paper, Scissors through to the next round. Then we're going to talk about the two children's books that I read. So we've got Karen's Kittycat Club by Katy Farina up against Claudia and the New Girl by Gabriela Epstein. So both of these are adaptations of the original Babysitters Club books by Anne Martin, although it's worth noting Anne Martin didn't write all the Babysitters Club books. A lot of them were written by other people. She wrote a lot of them, and I think outlined a lot of them. So the Babysitters Club books were some of my favorite books when I was a kid. We have the main Babysitters Club series as well as the Babysitter's Little Sister series, following one of the little sisters of the babysitters. So it's a club of babysitters, and actually, let's talk about Claudia and the New Girl first. So in this one, this new girl moves to town and she's an artist like Claudia. They really get along with each other and they start hanging out all the time. But the new girl really only wants Claudia to spend time with her and not any of her old friends. She really looks down at Claudia's babysitting and questions how Claudia can really consider herself to be dedicated to her art if she's willing to spend all her time on these other non-artistic things. And in the beginning, Claudia kind of follows along with us, but eventually she learns that she does still value her babysitting time and her other friends and all the stuff she does with her family. And so she kind of breaks off her friendship with this girl, although eventually they come to some kind of middle ground. What I always loved about these Babysitters Club books, as well as when I was younger, I guess I just felt like they were my friends, but sneakily I learned a lot of stuff. I do think the lesson from this book wasn't quite represented as well as it is in the original, but I think that's just like the format, and it's a little bit hard to fit nuanced topics into just pictures and like dialogue rather than like a proper text and being able to show all the thinking of the characters. But regardless, this is just super nostalgic for me, so I enjoyed the reading experience. I find the art to be just really bright and colourful, so of course I enjoyed my experience. And I like seeing how they adapt these, because the newer graphic novels are set more in modern times, so sometimes they have to adjust things a little bit compared to when these books were initially written in the 80s, which is when I grew up. So it's kind of like a good chance for me to see how things have changed since my childhood. Then the other one is Karen's Kittycat Club. The main criticism I have for this is that there were not enough cats, considering it's meant to be a kitty cat club, but I think that was always the problem. Really, in this one, Karen's trying to make a club similar to Christie's Babysitter's Club, but she decides to form this kitty cat club with her two friends that happen to have cats that don't actually like each other, and it doesn't go very well, and she's also trying to figure out ways to like monetize this club the same way that Christy monetized hers. I did like how the adults in this, it's kind of made quite clear that they don't think it's a very good idea, but they let Karen go along with it and learn the lesson herself rather than just telling her straight up that it won't work, which is quite nice. I don't know that would always work out in real life, but still probably a better approach than anything else. But yeah, just not enough cats. Not enough cats at all. And probably the same thing stands where I don't think the lessons were hit quite as hard, although the Babysitter's Little Sister books were always kind of targeted at quite young children, so probably the lessons weren't as strong in that one anyway. I haven't actually read all the Little Sister books because by the time I discovered them, I was already a little bit too old. And I'm not sure I could handle going back and reading them all, because I just think they'd be too basic and I'd be a little bit bored. But I'm enjoying reading them in graphic novel style because they're super quick to read, the art is really cute, and it's just a little bit of fun. Still, if I am putting these two books up against each other, I do think Claudia and the New Girl was a little bit more nostalgic for me, as well as like more of an interesting story, really. So that means I'll put Claudia and the New Girl through to what we will call the semi-finals of this video. I don't know if I should call it the semi-finals, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, that means we're going to have another battle. This is going to be between Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney and Claudia and the New Girl by Gabriela Epstein. So these are completely different. They don't really go together at all. And interestingly, like my gut is just to go with the adult book because I feel like there was more depth to it. I did enjoy the twist. It was a good mystery. I enjoyed figuring things out. But do you know what? I think I enjoyed Claudia and the New Girl more. Although actually, both of them had toxic relationships, but one was a toxic friendship and it was more about learning to have healthy relationships, where did any of the characters in Rock, Paper, Scissors really learn to have healthy relationships? No, they did not. So I actually think I'm going to pick Claudia and the New Girl to go through to the finals. Is that where we're up to? I used to organize these videos much more than I do now. Anyway, that means Claudia and the New Girl is the best thriller and children's graphic novel that I read this month. What am I even doing with my groupings? It doesn't matter. We're going to put Claudia and the New Girl up against the best fantasy and science fiction book that I read in February, and that was Fool's Assassin by Robin Hobb. In my first part of this video, I called it the wrong thing the whole time, but it was actually the first book in the Fitz and the Fool trilogy by Robin Hobb. This is the final trilogy of the bigger Realm of the Elderlings, which is a series I've been reading a long time. We're mainly following Fitz, who is the bastard son of the king in waiting. In this book, he's like 40-something, 50-something, I don't know, quite old. like my age. And we're following along with him as he is kind of put in a situation where he's looking after a bunch of children. Sometimes it's a happy domestic situation, sometimes it's really not, as we've come to expect from the realm of the elderlings. But it was incredibly emotional. I loved it so much. I have loved that whole series. So it's probably not fair to put it up against Claudia and the New Girl. However, Babysitter's Club books were my favorite as kids. So like, if anything was gonna try and compete, maybe this is the one. But still, it can't win. Because like, even though I've known the girls from the Babysitter's Club for 40 years probably, I still don't think I am as emotionally invested in their stories as I am Fitz's story. Although it'd be interesting to compare page numbers between the Babysitter's Club series and the Realm of the Elderlings, because the Realm of the Elderlings still might win, even though there's hundreds of books in the Babysitter's Club series. I point over here because they're actually down there, but you can't see them. Anyway, I'm just stretching this out. Anyone who knows me knows I'm going to pick Fool's Assassin as the best book that I read in February. I'm super excited to be reading Fool's Quest next week, and I'm going to finish the series. It's going to be amazing, and then I'm going to restart the whole thing. Anyway, do let me know if you have read any of the books that I talked about in this video, because I would love to talk with you about them down in the comments. And also, please do recommend any thrillers that you think I might actually like, because I'm very fussy with those. Also distracted by my neighbor's cat that just walked past. Anyway, I hope that you are doing well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.